Hi everyone, I'm Rachel Tessman from stampyourartout.com. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator from Andover, Minnesota in the US. And today I'm bringing you a pre-recorded online paper crafting class where I walk you through the steps of how to make 24 cards instead of just 8 from the Forever Friends kit. I love doubling, tripling, quadrupling our kits. It's so much fun to see what more I can make from the supplies. This kit is from our kits collection, one of our online exclusive offerings, so you will not see it in any publication. I hope that you enjoy the ways that I alter this kit. And if you do, please click the thumbs up, share with your friends, and make sure that you're subscribed to my channel so that you can see more creative ideas that I share each week using Stampin' Up! Products. Again, I am not able to be live with you today, and I apologize for that, but I still wanted to share a creative idea using amazing Stampin' Up! Paper crafting products because I'm in love with them. So what I've got here in this kit, the supplies, I should say, that you get with the kit are supplies enough to make 4 of each of this one and 4 of each of this one. So I took those supplies and I divided them out. So I've got 4 stacks. And one of the stacks is missing because I've already created with it. But you got 1, 2, 3, and then the 4th one. This stack will make 1 of each card. This stack will make 1 of each card, etc. So we're going to take a couple of these stacks away and we're just going to focus on one of the stacks. And this one again makes 2 cards, one of this one and one of this one, including the envelopes. Everything's in here. It does not include the ink. The ink comes in the kit. It's Night of Navy. You get Calypso Coral twine. You also get a clear block to use with your stamp set that you get in the kit, and you get some adhesives. So if you're following the kit directions, the visual directions here, you should be able to make these kits with all these cards with all the supplies that are in the kit. You may need a scissors and then something to clean your stamps off with, but otherwise you're set to go. But I want to bring in some extra cardstock and extra envelopes and one more embellishment just to kind of spruce it up and multiply the cards in the kit. We're going to triple it. So we're going to bring in 3 sheets of Night of Navy cardstock, and we're going to cut these pieces down so that when we take those 3 sheets and cut them in half to get 6 card bases, these are going to become layers for those cards. Here are our 3 sheets of Night of Navy, and I chose that color because it's the color of the ink spot or the ink pad that comes in your kit. And we're going to cut them all the same way. So we're going to score down the middle in this direction. Our cardstock is 8.5 by 11, so 8.5 in half is 4 1/4, and then we're going to turn and we're going to cut halfway through 11 inches, and half of 11 is 5.5. So we've got 2 card bases that are folded and ready. We're going to do that with 2 more sheets of cardstock. When you're going to be making 2 cards from 1 sheet, it's always best to score first because it's less steps. And now we'll bring in our bone folder and we'll crease on all those score lines. So for 2 of the cards, we're going to make them almost identical, and we're going to be stamping on this piece first with our Night of Navy ink. So I'm going to set up my stamps on my clear blocks. I've got extra clear blocks so that it makes it easier and quicker for me to stamp. And I'm going to go grab my larger Night of Navy ink pad. So we'll go ahead and do what the kit suggests for making those flowers stand out a bit more. We're going to ink up our large flower, and it's going to sit right on top of the image that's already on the card. So you just have to line it up, go from the top, and stamp it down. And I am stamping from an angle because I am recording this video, so forgive me if my flower lines do not line up. That one was a little bit better. So let's now stamp onto our let's stamp our Forever Friends onto our labels. And let's grab our trimmer and cut this piece in half. Right now it measures 5 inches, so half of 5 is 2.5. We need to have a couple more layers for that card, so we're going to use the envelope flaps. We're going to cut our envelopes first in this direction because we're going to need them to be open later on. So we're just trimming off a 1/16 of an inch on each side, and that's going to open up our flaps, or I'm sorry, our envelopes. so that we can see a nice full sheet of white. And then we'll come in and we'll just trim right inside the metallic area. So we've got, we can include that score line. You don't need to include the score line, but I think it's kind of a fun little extra there. And then we'll do the same thing to this one. And then we want our pieces, our flaps here, to be a little bit narrower. Yes. Okay, so these come to 5 5/8, and I believe I cut off about 1/4 of an inch on each side. And you can stack them and do them at the same time, especially if they're the exact same size. And that just kind of flattens out the top and bottom. That's what these are going to become, the top and bottom of the card. And if you cut off the same amount on each side, it's going to make them look a little more even. So there are 2 other layers. We've got our card bases, and then we're going to also need this section of the envelope. So we're going to cut, we'll do one at a time for this. We'll cut just inside or outside this score line here so that we're removing it. And it's nice to have a sharp blade because if you cut right on a score line, you can get some fringes. Okay, so we're going to remove, and we've kept that score line in there just because we don't want to cut right on the score line. And now when you flip these over, you can see that we've got some paper that is glued down here. If that doesn't bother you, you can leave it. I'm going to remove it. So I'm going to go ahead and cut, I believe, is it 1/2 of an inch? Let me check again here. So this is, if I go to there and I want to cut to there, it's just under 1/2 of an inch. So I just went under 1/2 of an inch, and then I was able to peel these things away. But if you want to go further, you can just do the same amount on each side. It's going to be the inside layer of your card where you put your inside sentiment, your words, you know, so that just removes that area. And if you cut, if you cut this way more, it's going to be harder to peel off that section. As you can see, there's already some parts that are still glued there. We have one more piece to stamp on, and that's the inside piece. So I think what we're going to do though is we're going to let's assemble the front of one of the cards first so that we can see where we want to stamp that inside piece, because it's going to kind of line up with it. This layer is just going to be added directly onto the card. So I'm adding seal adhesive. And we want the same border on the 3 sides. So the top, the bottom, and the left edge have about the same border all the way around. Then we've got our, let's see here, I'm going to check my florals because you can arrange them differently. Like this one could be turned this way. This one could be turned, I think I'm going to turn this way. So we're going to go with this one, and we're going to pop that up with dimensionals. So I'm just going to grab my sheet here. I'm running out, I have to get a new sheet. I'm putting 1 in each corner. And I'm already eyeballing where my sentiment strip is going to go. I don't want to cover up my flowers. I want to show more of them. So I'm looking for a space that doesn't have as much yellow in it. And this looks like it will work here. You could also turn it in this direction. You could put it down here. You know, it's up to you. But I wanted the heavier side, heavier look to that side. I'm looking at the edge of the green and I'm looking at the edge of the blue. And I'm centering between them. I know you would think to center between this edge and this edge, but I think it looks more centered when you're centering between this layer and this edge. And then we'll go ahead and add our sentiment piece, but before we do that, we need to add some twine. So we're going to take, I think we're going to take the same amount that it says in the instructions. And if we look at the instructions, it says 10 inches. So we'll use our grid paper or our ruler. Let's take a ruler. so you can all see, and we're going to measure out 10 inches. And since we're doing the same thing to each card, I'm just going to hold where that 10 inches was, and I'm going to grab my paper snips wherever it went to. I'll just use this one. This one is not my ribbon one. And then I'm still holding at this end, and I'm just pulling tight, and I'm cutting. So each of these pieces are now 10 inches, and I'm going to do a bow, and then I can adjust the legs of the bow and make it look nice and fluffy. So that's going to be placed underneath the sentiment strip. Might as well tie the other one right now. So I've got 2 of those, and it's okay that they look floppy. Okay, so let's grab our sentiment strip, and again, picture where that's going to go. Do you have an extra one here? I guess we do. Oh, that's the one I just stamped. Okay, so we're going to add that about here, which means I want to use like a glue dot or find a multi-purpose liquid glue or something gluish to add our little twine piece here. And I'm just going to kind of bunch that up so it's underneath the twine. And this twine can really go wherever it wants to go. If it wants to spread out like that, just let it, right? And then we'll add dimensionals again. And I think we're going to put a dimensional right over that section because we have glue there, and we don't want glue there. We don't want glue to be in the way, I guess I should say. So we'll put one on each side here, pull off the backing here, and now we've got, you know, in a sense, we've got 3 dimensionals there. Okay, so we've added that. We've got our fun twine coming out the sides here. So the inside layer is going to get stamped with some flowers, and we're going to line up those flowers so that they're on the top right section over here. So let's grab our ink again. I think this looks good, so we're going to stamp it right there. And then I'm going to use the leaf image that came in the kit. Forgot to pull that out. And we're going to mount that onto a block and stamp that down so that we have leaves coming off the flower. It looks a little busy because they're all one color, so that's why the blending or the blender pen is going to come in handy. And this tool just takes the ink that's already there on the edges of the stamped image and blends it out. Start where you want the color to be the darkest, and then gradually move out to where you want it to be the lightest. This ink worked well for that. Darker inks and well-inked ink pads work well. You'll want to use the water-based inks for the blender pens. If this was stamped in a lighter color, I may not see what I'm coloring in or what color I'm coloring in, and you may have to dip into your ink pad, or you could ink up the surface of your clear block, get some ink on that, and then dip into that to grab color. But that was pretty easy with the Night of Navy ink. Let's grab our seal adhesive and just put a bit of adhesive along the back side here, and then we can add that to the inside of our card. And now we have a finished first card. Let's do that same thing with the other supplies. I forgot. I told you earlier I was going to bring in an embellishment. I'm bringing in the 23 through 25 in colored dots. They are in 5 in colors, so you get all of those. And we're going to use this one here for the center of our flowers. So we're just going to take and peel it back, lift it off with our Take Your Pick tool, and set it down. I'm using a smaller one off to the left here. You could use the smallest ones, you know, your choice on the sizes. Now we have 2 of them done. Let's do another couple cards. So this is what's left of the envelopes, but we're not going to use those white pieces on these next 2 cards. We're going to use 1.5 pieces of the card bases from the kit. We're going to trim them down. So first we're going to cut them in half, each of them, on the score line. So again, you'll want to have a sharp blade so that you don't have fringes. And then you're going to cut each of those in half. So half of 4 1/4 is 2 1/8. We're cutting it right here. So we have one for each card, and we're actually going to use the white side of each of those. And then we're going to cut this one in half at 2 1/4. But then each of these pieces, we're going to remove 3/4 of an inch. And again, I think it's easier, or maybe I said this in another video, but it's easier when you are using the smaller measurements if you hold on to it on the left side of your trimmer here and you use this side to bring it in to measure. So we're going to trim off 3/4 of an inch, and I'll just demonstrate this way. See, it's a little more cumbersome because you kind of have to move that thing around. That's why I like to use this side because it's out of the way. 3/4 of an inch. There we go. And then we need the yellow half, just the plain yellow. So we'll cut this in half at the score line, remove the polka dot one, and we'll cut this in half at 2 1/8 inches. All right, next let's bring, so these are for our 2 different cards. Let's bring in a couple card bases, and we'll also need our stamps. So let's do our stamping next. We've got our, we'll just do both cards at the same time. We've got our outside of the card pieces, and we have our inside of the card pieces. So our inside of the card pieces are going to say, I'm always here for you no matter what. Let's grab one of our blocks and stamp with that sentiment on it. And then the outside is going to say, sending lots of hugs. And we'll just center our images on each paper. And then for these pieces here, we're going to stamp the sending lots of hugs in the middle. And then we're going to put some floral designs on the edges with our flower and our leaf stamp images. I want a lighter flower than I had on the last card, so I'm going to stamp off, and then I'm going to come in and stamp it. Do the same thing at the top, stamp off, and I think I'm just going to stamp it right like that. I want to see the center of the flower still on each of them because we're going to embellish in the center. Let's do that with this one. Stamp off, and then on. Make sure that we're including the center of the flower each time. Okay, so we've got our lighter navy ink, and now we want to add a set of leaves. I'm going to stamp off once and twice to get a slightly lighter shade once again. Once, twice, and there we go. Let's do the same thing. Once, twice. We need to bring in our trimmer once again, and we're going to cut off 1 inch from the front of our card. So we're removing this piece, and we're going to have a piece in here that you'll be able to see from the front when the card is closed and from the inside when it's open. So let's do that again to this one. And to finish off these cards, I'm going to bring back in the in-color dots, and we're going to use a couple different colors on this just for fun. We'll use the Pebbled Path color and the Moody Mauve color for the centers of our flowers. And there we have a couple fun fold cards. Okay, we have 2 cards left, and we have these pieces left. So we're going to start with the one that requires this as one of the top layers. And we'll trim that down. We're going to trim it to 4 1/8, although you can go in a little further if you want to. I just wanted a little hint of blue on the front around the edges. So 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. We're going to stamp on this piece, and we're going to stamp on this sentiment piece, and I'm going to lay it on my paper here so I can see better, because last time I couldn't see very well. And we will stamp Forever Friends again. You can choose whatever sentiment you want, but I really love this one. So there's for this card, and this is also going to go on the card. It's going to go on the card about a couple inches from the bottom with this positioned right about there. So that's going to kind of dictate where we put our flower images, because we're going to add some flower images. Thankfully we have stamps in this kit that are beautiful. And we're going to hover, and then we're going to move. And then we're going to place it back where we had it. And let's see here. I think I'm going to turn it this way, and we're going to hover, and we're going to move. And let's put it back in the same spot again. Now let's grab our leaves. I'm going to take and put a couple up here. Maybe a couple that are coming off the edge here. And some down in here so that they show up underneath the little fun strip here. And then we're going to use our blending pen again. I'm just checking to make sure it looks right. I probably should have moved that leaf out a little bit more. Oh well. Okay. So now we're going to use the blender, the blender pen, and we're going to do it with the flower this time. And it works on this printed paper too. Now you don't want to move the blender pen too much when you're coloring repeatedly over the same area, because what you can do is you can start to create a pilling effect on the paper. It can start to kind of get real saturated and rough. And we're coloring just the flower petals. Now I'm going to add adhesive to the back side. No, it's about 1.5 inches from the bottom, if you were wanting to know. That's what I did, about 1.5 inches. And then this piece we'll put up on dimensionals, but let's go ahead and mount it to our card base. Oops. Always check your card base to make sure it's going in the right direction. We'll use dimensionals again. I'm running out, but this is a good thing because that means I get to use the new sheet. Yes, use the edges of your dimensionals, people. Let's add some embellishments with our dots again. This time we're using the wild wheat color. And when you like where you got them, push them in place. Okay, the inside of the card is dark, so of course we need something on the inside. So we're going to take one of these pieces and we're going to cut it to the same size that we cut the front of our card. Actually, we may have to go smaller. Let me look here. Oh, if we're really careful, we can. We can get 4 1/8 out of there, but we may not be able to. So I'm just going to trim off. So I'm removing this metallic edge here. And can we bring it to 4 1/8? We can, but then we're cutting right on the score line. So I'm going to shift over just a tad. So it's just under 4 1/8, which means this side is going to be just under 5 3/8. Then it will look even all the way around. And I don't believe I stamped anything on the middle of my sample card, but you certainly can. You could put a flower in there. You could put some more words. The stamps and the ink you can use forever and ever. And when you get our kits, like I said at the beginning, it comes with a clear block. So you could potentially build up a whole collection of clear blocks so that you don't have to interchange every time you stamp if you are a kit collector. So there's that card. We have one more card to make, and that's using my favorite piece from the kit. I wish we had more of these. And I'm not going to stamp on it like they show on this one here. I want to keep it nice and soft looking, so I'm not going to do the outlines of the leaves and the mini flowers and the big flower. I'm just going to leave those as is, and I'm going to come in with one of the sentiments from the kit that we haven't used yet, because it fits in lower space real well. So let's grab our Night of Navy ink, and the space is right here. Now if you don't want to use this sentiment, you could use a different one. You could put a little label piece over the top. You could change it up however you want, but this is a nice card to send to somebody who empathized with you about something or other, right? You had a bad day and they tuned into your feelings. Okay, and I ran out of dimensionals, so let's go to this sheet next and grab those. Peel off the backings and make sure our card's going the right way. Add it to the front of our card. So pretty and so sweet, right? Let's grab a few of these fun embellishments. This time, let's take some more of the wild wheat color ones and fill in some spaces here just for a little shine and glow. Another reason not to put dimensionals right up to the edges, so you can tuck your pieces. So I'm going to go ahead and just add a few more that are the blue color. This is boho blue, and boy does it look stunning against this Night of Navy. And on the inside we need a layer, so we'll do the same thing we did before. And there's that finished card. So pretty. And that's how you turn 2 cards into 6, how you triple the cards in this Forever Friends kit. I didn't end up using this adhesive, but do not throw it away. These are great dimensional strips. I suppose I could have used them instead of just straight dimensionals. I forgot these were in there. And when you do it 3 more times, here's 1 more time, and then you do this, you double this, you're going to have 24 cards from your kit. Amazing, right? I love to do that with the kits. There was another kit that I just did earlier that was the kaleidoscope one. I can't remember the exact name of it, but there's one with the word kaleidoscope in it. And I did some alterations to it, and then I had to tuck some layering leaves images into it because I love that stamp set. So make sure that you check out that post as well. I will add a link to that in the description. I hope that you enjoyed what I had to share today. Remember to refer to the description of my video for a list of supplies that I've used. You can also look for the link to my blog post in that description so you can see close-up photos of what I've created. You can also see the measurements written out, and you can see and shop from a visual supply list. Please join me next week at 11 a.m. Central Time for my next paper crafting class. Thanks so much for subscribing to my channel. Thanks for the thumbs up, and thanks for sharing. In the meantime, have a great week, and now I'd like you all to go and stamp your art out. Bye-bye.